Welcome to what was originally the Imagine Exposure podcast. I'm in the process of doing some pivoting, so it'll be called the Day in the Life of a Professional podcast. But today we have a very, very, very special guest. This is Maggie Parker. She will introduce herself and kind of give a rundown. But Maggie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Zach, and Happy New Year to you and all that jazz.
Absolutely. Our question right off the gate that we ask every guest is, who are you and how do you define yourself?
Who am I? My name is Maggie Parker. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I am a community developer that loves to get some really cool projects done.
Awesome, awesome. What is your story as it pertains to work and vocation?
What is my story? So let's see. I'm from Dallas. I left for a ton of school, but while I was here, I went to school on one side of town and lived on another. So this dichotomy around like where you live, how that impacts your outlook on life, really kind of resonated with me as I left for school. So I really got interested in urban planning, how cities work, what the how cities change, right, as a result of people, politics, et cetera. And so that kind of dove me into really into community development. From that space, I've always been big on how can I be influential and really have the most impact in the work that I was doing. And that ended up being real estate development, which, being an urban planner and being in that space, real estate developers are like the devil of the field, right? So yeah, it's a really interesting dichotomy, but I saw that in order to like actually get deals done and have the impact that I wanted to have, developers were leading that. So for me, I was able to pivot into being a real estate developer a lot sooner than I thought. And so I've just been working in that space through my company, Innovon Neighborhoods, since 2019.
Awesome, that's awesome. So you talked about, I guess, people's perception of you, that sort of thing. So it kind of prepares us for our third question. But what would you say is the biggest misconception about what you do in your job?
Yeah, so let me actually back up and explain what I do. I don't know if
Okay.
I did that, and then I'll do the misconception. So my company is called Innovon Neighborhoods. We're doing real estate development and consulting, all on community-oriented projects. On the consulting side, I mainly work with nonprofits, faith-based organizations to help move their deals forward. On the development side, I'm currently working on three main projects, all affordable and kind of mixed income, so market and affordable units, which represent about 300 units and $100 million worth of projects. So that's kind of the big chunk. And then I also have an initiative that I started called the Community Developers Roundtable, which is a network of community-based real estate developers, all people of color, and raised about $1.6 million for a pre-development fund, 2-year pilot, et cetera. So that's in the works as well. So hopefully that gives a broader context as far as biggest misconception. So I think a lot of people don't actually understand what it means to be a developer, right? They're like, oh, they're making a ton of money. Oh, they get, why, everyone's kind of questioning, well, why would a developer put this here? Or why would they put that there? And I think a lot of people don't understand the market dynamics, but I think the biggest thing is like how much risk is actually in doing development. So,
Hmm.
you know, first you have a lot of personal risk because you have to personally guarantee projects, right? So whatever you have on your personal balance sheet, in addition to your company, you have to put that up with the bank, right? So that's a lot of personal risk. You also have a lot of financial risk. It takes a lot of money to get projects started because deals can take, I have projects that, I've been working on for 2 years and we're probably another year or two from turning dirt. That's just how long it takes, right? So when you keep that in mind and you're spending money in year one, you have to have money that can wait for 3-4 years, probably even longer before you see any return from that, right? So I think the amount of time, the amount of risk that is there is usually the biggest misconception, but it's like high risk, high reward, right? And so that's kind of how most developers have to play the game and make the impact that they want to see.
That's awesome. That is awesome to know how robust, because I know for me, I was introduced to you from a friend of mine, and I see a lot of what you post online, but the totality of what you do is so vast and it's really cool. And I think the goal of this podcast is to help students be able to reverse engineer their career paths. And so what they can do is kind of see from your story and hopefully grow and develop within their own. And so that's awesome that you share that. Who would you say are the people in your vocational story in which you are most grateful?
Most grateful. Shoo. First I would have to say my parents and my family for sure. They put me and sacrificed to put me into some really amazing schools that allowed me to just be exposed to a lot at a very early stage, right? And so that has been huge, right? Like a lot of things I just would not know was possible without their encouragement and support. Well, once I get into like my real full-time job, which was my previous job at the real estate council, I would say my immediate boss and the president of the organization really like taught me the nuts and bolts of how this real estate, world works, how community development works, how to build influence. Like they were just pivotal in how to, just manage people and spaces that I was not typically used to. And then lastly, I would say my current business partners, Matthew Southwest. I truly but God on partnering with them because they have a similar vision, but also are willing to take the risk and put up capital and patient capital to do these projects. And so their faith in me, my trust in them, is really the only way that I can be doing the projects that I'm doing right now at such an early stage in this business. So yeah, it's been a great partnership for sure.
This next question, a lot of times when we are developing as professionals, you can go back 10 years or longer, and you can look at these traces of yourself when you were a kid, when you were a teenager, that are similar to what you do today in your current profession. And so this question is, how do your childhood passions as a kid prepare you for your adult career choice?
My childhood passions. Now I got to remember what my passions were. I was involved in a lot of different things. So whether that was sports or whether, I did a lot of student government stuff. So I was kind of the person that liked for things to be organized and I do like working in a group. I don't work in a group as much with my current job, but I think that the things that I was doing when I was younger, I was just more so exploring what I was interested in. I spent a lot of time doing a lot of different internships or shadowing people. So I always encourage people to especially the younger you are, just try different stuff. It's better to know the things that you don't like than, and then not to spend time on that. You can go explore something else. So I did a lot of that. And then a lot of the things that I was interested in were, allow me to have different leadership positions, allow me to work on kind of process and getting people organized and excited about whatever we were working on. So I kind of took those leadership opportunities because that was just something I was interested in. But I was involved in a lot of different things. So whether that was sports or topics on race relations or managing volunteer opportunities for different groups in schools and neighborhoods, so it really did vary.
So this next question is about the economy of words. How can you explain what you do as a professional in one sentence? Then how can you explain what you do as a professional in one word?
In one word, I'll say impact.
Mhm.
In one sentence, what do I do? I would say bring various community and, let's say, influential stakeholders together to revitalize neighborhoods.
Hmm. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And it's just it's such a need everywhere. I'm in South Carolina, and I would only imagine like what you see in Dallas is one space in that, but there's always a need for development in various communities, and it's very
Mhm.
important work. What would you say is the thing that you love the most about your job?
What do I love the most? I mean, for me, like the cool part is like coming up with this concept and figuring out how to execute it. I'm really good at getting things started, pulling a vision together, pulling people around a vision, getting other people excited about it, and like getting it done. And then after I figure out how to get it done, I'm like, okay, somebody actually like sustain it. And so I like the problem solving component of it. I love working with others and helping them see their dreams come to reality. So like I get to do that through the roundtable. As we're developing different projects, I'm very attentive to what the neighborhood stakeholders say that they want, right? So in that space, sometimes it takes a lot of creativity and political maneuvering or finding different capital sources in order to do that. And so I like that part of the messiness that kind of gets to come together. And so I think for me, all of that leads to like impact that you wouldn't necessarily see if everyone was if I was doing the traditional real estate development space. But it's kind of the messiness that gets to come together that I enjoy the most.
Hmm. That's interesting. Most people wouldn't make that connection, but that's cool. You are that way. When you say the biggest challenge in your work, what would you say is the thing that when you go to work every day, you're like, what is that? Your largest challenge?
Right now, politics and people.
Ah,
I think, when we talk about doing community engagement, it's never what we think it is, right? Like, because you can say, oh, you went to the neighborhood leaders, or oh, you went and talked to whoever's the, council person over that district or whatever. And people think differently about what neighborhoods they actually represent, who actually is running the show in power. And so you can easily step into it. I'm in the middle of this right now. I stepped into a situation where I was like, oh yeah, I'm following the neighborhood plan. I talked to so and so, I did what the city asked. Like, so I'm thinking I'm getting all the stakeholders. No, it wasn't nothing like that.
oh wow.
And people just had a different perception of who was running the show, what they wanted in their neighborhood, all of that. So
Hmm.
I think it's the people side that is the hardest piece because it changes daily, right?
Mhm.
How you manage people, who you talk to when, those are things you kind of have to fill out. It's nothing that you can like look in a book or try to learn. It's a dynamic that is just continues to be unknown. So that's probably the biggest challenge is the people side in politics.
Mm. Politics is something else, and I feel like it goes into a lot of different areas. But I can only imagine the politics you have to deal with within your job. Um, what would you say are the steps that a person must accomplish to either become certified or respected in your profession?
Yeah, so there isn't necessarily I mean, I guess there are certifications like to learn more housing development, like financing, economic development financing. So National Development Council is one example. I have certifications from them. But you really don't need anything. You really need capital and to be around people that have experience that are willing to teach you, right? I think that on the development side, there's so many ways that you can like be an expert in this space. Like you can be an expert on the construction side, you can be an expert on the financing side, you can be an expert on the relationship side. And there's like a ton of things you can go into the weeds on that. I think what's typically hardest for folks is figuring out how to pull the money together and build their relationships to get the deal done. Most other things you can hire out for. So your general contractor, your architect, your land developer, but having the relationships for financing is not always easy. Having the relationships where people want to support, your deal on a political level is not always easy. So those are some of the things that have to kind of come together, to make a deal happen. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of the thought process.
But that's perfect. I mean, I think one of the things that I'm always engaging is more of an academic vision for what a person ought to do. You need to go to college, you need to do this, you need that. And I think that one of the things that's really cool about this podcast is there are a lot of professionals who say this may not be needed, or this is what is needed, or focus your efforts and your attention here. And so I think it's a great resource for students to be able to start thinking critically about what does it look like to either save or to raise capital? What does it look like to get into these spaces and get experience on a construction site? And so I think that that's what the whole goal is. So you did answer the question. It's just not, it's not an easy answer because that's a career profession. And
let me build on that as well. So I do think like you got to have like a baseline like understanding of projects, right? And like figure out from which angle you want to delve into that. Where I tell most folks, because I'm mainly in the community development space, so these are people who have a heart for neighborhoods. Where most people who want to do this work are not skilled at is doing financial analysis and development pro formas. And I stress that all day. If you can learn one thing, it's how to do a development pro forma. There's plenty of classes online. You could learn it in school, and I learned it in graduate school, but not in a class, actually with the on-campus consulting firm. But that is like the main differentiator, because we always have these ideas of what needs to happen in neighborhoods, but figuring out how the money actually flows and how all the capital sources work together and what to even look for in that conversation is probably the biggest gap. So if somebody's going to spend some time and some money like getting trained, that would be where I would spend time and resources for sure.
Let's see. Okay, so this particular question is specifically for communities of color. I know that historically, there's a variety of different reasons why we've been left out of certain conversations, specifically when it ties to money and it ties to our value, our worth, negotiation, et cetera. Specifically in real estate, even I had the opportunity to do a project Dallas years ago, and there are some interesting stories. I got a chance to serve in the South Dallas neighborhood, Pleasant Grove, and that sort of thing, and just how sometimes people can be taken advantage of in a lot of different ways without the knowledge or resources. But my question to you is, how does a person negotiate salary or the value of their services in this career choice?
So technically developers don't make a salary, you get your developer's fee, right? So there's usually in your developer's fee, there's typically a range based on the size and type of project. So that could range from 5 to 15% of the overall development costs. Some of that you get to know as you learn more deals, like what percentage of the deal you should be charging. On the consulting side, I think that can be a little bit harder, because if you're only doing consulting like as your full-time gig, then there's a lot of other components that you have to assess, right? Like not just the value of your time, but also what taxes are going to be taken out, right? Like how much are you thinking about what your additional administrative overhead is, right? Like then that all adds up on top of your base salary. So that's kind of the baseline for the consulting piece. For me, consulting is not the main driver. So I don't have to add as many components. or have as many costs into my consulting fee, but it does, it does bring in revenue just to kind of keep some dollars going. But the main source for me is the developer's fee.
All right. This is the time machine question. If you could go back and talk to Maggie of 2019 or even prior to that, based on what you know now on your vocation, what advice would you give yourself if you can go back on the first day of the job?
If I could go back, that's hard for me because I can't even like anticipate. If you asked me if I was going to be doing what I'm doing now 3 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have been like, no way. Like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? I can't even fathom. Like, I learned something last week that I'm still like flabbergasted about. So random fact, did you know that HOA dues, so homeowner association dues, are like 5 times more expensive for townhomes than they are for single family? Like, I had no clue. So, so it's hard for me to go back in time and say, what would I tell myself? Because it's like, I couldn't even imagine, right? The things that are going on. I mean, I'd probably say like, just rest. You don't have to go as fast as you have, everything doesn't have to be, but I also think like I'm in this position because I pushed myself, and now I have to take a different speed of work because these deals take so long. And previously I'm like, so what are we doing next? What are we doing next? So there's plenty I've learned, but I don't know. I don't have like a distinct, like what I tell myself for now, because I just can't even imagine it. I don't think I could have imagined the things. So yeah.
And I jump, my mind kind of thinks like more like story. And I'm thinking of the fact that you started a business in 2019, pre-pandemic, not knowing what it was going to be. Boom, you hit the pandemic, and like now you're out of. It's almost like these chapters, right? Just chronologically. Like, I mean, that in and of itself is just wild. You know what I mean? To start something in that space. So I can only imagine what you went through. So how do you prepare to one day transition from this role? We start talking about in-game retirement. What's your transition plan?
So in my ideal world, I'm running Innovon still. I mean, to me, this is my lifelong business. I have no reason to do anything else because I'm doing what I enjoy,
Really? Okay.
But I want to own a house in South Africa and live there 3 months out of the year. I already know the beach that I want to be on. Like, it's already planned in my head. I just need to do it. So
little things.
Yeah, so my retirement plan is to do that, to have built this business enough to support enough other developers where I don't have to be here all the time because there's a team that's running it. And I kind of know what the flow of things are going to be. And when I come back to Dallas, I can do what I need to do. And otherwise, I'm out in South Africa chilling. So that's my plan.
I love it. That's a big vision. I love it. So the next thing, the last 2 questions, I asked everyone to do a Cultivate countdown. Basically, what are some essential principles that you take to work every day that you can hopefully that another person who is a developer looking up to you in your shoes could say these are the essentials that Maggie takes each day. So what would you say is your Cultivate countdown, the steps to or the essentials to be great at your job every day?
One is plan for the long term. This work, and to really have community impact, is a 20-year minimum 20-year journey. Okay. And so when you think long term, it actually changes like your decision-making process, right? How you view relationships. It's a game changer when you think with a long-term vision versus like what's happening next week, So that's one. I would say that another thing I kind of keep close to me is like, if it was easy, it would already be done. This work is hard, and Everyone doesn't recognize that, which is okay. But for myself and for any other developer, that means that we have to reassess, what does success look like? What does progress look like? You can't be down. And for me, at the beginning of my business, I was like, well, shoot, I haven't built any houses yet. Like, I haven't really done anything. This business isn't working, but I had to realize, like, yeah, actually, you're moving projects forward. There's progress on that, and you're way closer than you were 6 months ago or a year ago. And so success, I had to reframe what success looks like for sure. I think, as we know in any other business, like, relationships is huge. And building influence for me is a primary component of that. I think in order to really impact neighborhoods, you have to be influential. You build influence through trust and serving others, right? And so I build into how I operate that I want to, I'm serving others in the work that I'm doing, and on an ancillary time frame, right? Anytime somebody wants to meet or they have questions or I can be a resource for them, I'm like, yeah, let's set up a meeting, right? I much rather support your work, and build that relationship with you so that 10 years from now, we have a rapport, So those are some of the things that I kind of keep close to me as I operate, because it's a mindset shift to really want to see impact, but having the patience to have the impact that you want to have, influence to do that repeatedly. So.
No, I appreciate you breaking that down for us and being able to kind of just see the things that are important and key. I feel like there's a way in which no job profession, you can read a book all day, but talking to someone and just kind of seeing what you go through is very important and key. All right, our last question. This is the question that also goes on a meme. And in your words, ideally, if you have words that somebody has encouraged you with, feel free to share as well. But what is your one motivational quote? One motivational quote that would inspire others in your vocation or just in life in general?
Motivational quote. Ooh. I'm drawing a blank. Can we come back to that one?
Absolutely.
I don't have a motivational quote. I'd say the things I said before are things that I try to keep, close to me. Something I think also a lot about is like being committed to something is, I think a lot, like, and committed to something for that 20-year time frame. Like, what are the little actions that are gonna get you to that 20-year goal? Like, those are things that I think about a lot. Yeah, we might have to come back to that one.
Not a problem. What I can do is I can talk. And so as you're gathering your thoughts, first off, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. I know that it's going to encourage and really help a lot of people in a general sense. I think one of the things that's so interesting about just Dallas in general is the real estate, and just the story of Dallas. But if you go into one specific area within Dallas, it's an entire different. I really feel like it's almost an entire different city, literally. And I think that's so cool. And there's so many things that are out there. Some of the reason and rationale for parts of the city being the way it is not good, right? Going back to some of the parts of Dallas history that's tough. But I think that one thing, Texans, I'm from South Carolina, but I lived in Texas for 5 years. You guys, y'all love Texas. Y'all love your cities. Y'all love where you're from, and it's really encouraging. I'm working on a series right now that's kind of an ode to Texas, so from an outsider's perspective. It's called The Backstory to the Trampoline Academy. And so think Chronicles of Narnia comes to the inner city. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now.
Sure.
And, I'm sitting down with someone who is from Texas to help with the cover and things like that. But love the city, and I love kind of everything that you guys offer and what it's about. So that's really cool. So, but thank you for doing the podcast. And if you have that motivational quote, I think it'd be really cool. I don't know if it's come to you in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'll say is like, just enjoy the learning process, right? Like there's so many ways to learn and continue to be curious. And honestly, like continuous curiosity will take you far, right? Because other
Mhm.
folks want to pour into people that are curious, right? And so I think that to me has been huge. And let me also tell you, thank you for having me on here. Dallas is we're doing a lot of fun stuff in Dallas, and it's great to kind of hear the work that you're doing as well from your lens and how you're supporting people and thinking about their trajectory. So congrats and kudos to you as well.
Sounds awesome. And you had two great quotes in there. And that's growth mindset and so many other things. That's awesome. Where would you want people to find you if they wanted to find your business or find what you do? Where could they find you?
Yeah, so I'm primarily on LinkedIn. So Maggie Parker, Maggie J Parker, I think is on there, or my company name, Innovon Neighborhoods. I'm also on Instagram with Innovon Neighborhoods, and Innovon is INNOVAN. So
Well, Maggie, thank you so much for your time. You have a great day, and I hope you see everything that you are envisioning in terms of your big vision for what you want to do, and I really believe that that's going to happen. So I'm excited about that.
thanks, Zach. I appreciate it.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.